Students, in lesson 8.1, we're going to be working on relate multiplication to division. Our essential question for this lesson is, how is multiplication used to solve a division problem? You can use the relationship between multiplication and division to solve a division problem. Using the same numbers, multiplication and division are opposite or inverse operations. And some of the examples that I want to just go in to make you understand the word inverse, if we think about the inverse of day, we would think that would be night. The inverse of light would be dark. And these are just some examples of inverse relationships or opposite ones. So here we have the example 3 times 8 is equal to 24. So we see a factor times a factor is equal to a product. However, in a division problem, we have the dividend divided by the divisor is equal to the quotient. So our product becomes our dividend. Our divisor is one of the factors, and our quotient is one of the other factors. So we're going to start with the unlock the problem. Joel and his 5 friends collect 126 marbles. They share the marbles equally. How many marbles will each person get? I circle the word equally because it prompts me to think that this is a division problem. And then I also circle the word each because I know when I hear the word each, I'm thinking about multiplication. So it says to underline the dividend. We know in this problem the dividend is the marbles because that's what we're splitting up. We know that the divisor is Joel and his 5 friends, so in total that would be 6. So one way we can solve this problem, students, is making an array. So what it says is to outline a rectangle array on the grid to model 120 squares arranged in 6 rows of the same length. And the reason why it needed to be same length, boys and girls, is because we're going to share the marbles. Again, that word is equally, so that's why we know that this is a division problem. It says shade a row, each row a different color. So I'm going to make my box. So I have 6 rows, and I'm going to shade them a different color. So you see, what I have here is my 6 friends who are going to be sharing all of the marbles together. So it says to count how many squares in each row. So what we're going to do is count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. There are 21 squares in each row. It says use the array to complete the multiplication sentence. Then use the multiplication sentence to complete the division. So boys and girls, 6 times 21 equals 126. So our missing factor is 21. Next, if we want to think about it inversely, if we have 126 divided among 6 rows, we get the answer of 21. So notice 21 is a factor when it is used here in the multiplication problem, and 21 is the quotient when it is used here in the division problem. So each of the 6 friends will get 21 marbles. Another way, students, we can use is distributive property, and it's really important to focus on this one because there are going to be many opportunities to practice this one on our homework. So it says divide, 52 divided by 4. You can use the distributive property and the area model to solve division problems. Remember that the distributive property states that multiplying a sum by a number is the same as multiplying each addend by the sum by the number and then adding the products. So what we have here is 52, and it says we're going to write a related multiplication sentence for the division problem. It says, think, the division is a factor and the dividend as the product. Again, the divisor as a factor and the dividend as the product. The quotient will be the unknown factor. So this unknown factor is going to be actually the quotient in the division problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this in several steps to break it down so you can see how we get at using the distributive property using the area model. So in step 2, we're actually going to break up the problem. So it says, use the distributive property to break apart the large area into 2 smaller areas for partial products that you know. So we see the larger area is 52. We're going to break that down into 2 smaller parts. And we broke it down to a multiple of 10, which is 40, and 42. So if we add those back together, we would get 52. So that's what this step represents here, the breaking up of the big 52. Next, I'm going to work inversely, and I'm going to say to myself, 4 times what number equals 10? That's correct. Sorry, boys and girls, 4 times 10 is equal to 40. So that is my unknown of one of the larger rectangles. Next, I'm going to say to myself, 4 times what number gives me 12? That's right. 3 times 4 gives me 12. The next step is step 3. It says, find the sum of the unknown factors of the smaller areas. So when we go back up here, we can circle in yellow the unknown factors. So the unknown factor in those 2 cases is 10 and 3, because that's what we just solved for. Notice, students, that 4 is the same and 4 is the same. The reason why that 4 is there, because we got that from the 52 divided by 4 is equal to a number that we don't know. So the 4 is telling us that we're looking at our multiples of 4 to get at our answer. So now we're going to go back down to this step 3, and it says find the sum of the unknown factors of the smaller areas. So we have 10 plus 3 is equal to 13. So now, students, something else that I help people remember this with is I say that the unknown factors are kind of like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's what we were looking for. So sometimes I draw kind of funny little pots of gold around them just so we know that that's what they are. If we think about this, students, this 3 represents the ones and this 10 represents the tens place of our partial products. We know when we have 2 partial products, we have to add them back up together to get our final product of 30. And now we have our last step, which says step 4, write the multiplication sentence with the unknown factor that you found. Then use the multiplication sentence to find the quotient. So we have 4 times 13 is equal to 52, the product. Now if we take 52 and make it the dividend, and we divide it by 4, we get the quotient of 13. So remember, one of the language objectives that we have in this lesson is we need to say to ourselves, multiplication problems can be solved by using division by means of blank property. So that's something that you're just checking in to see if you can use that for this actual lesson. Now, students, the last step here says, explain how you can use the distributive property to find the quotient of 96 divided by 8. So students, what I said here is I can write the related multiplication sentence 8 times an unknown number is equal to 96. Then I can use the distributive property to break apart the product. So I have 96 is equal to 80, which is a multiple of 10, plus 16. And when I just did this, I made them be in more manageable parts. So I'm going to use that information, 80 plus 16 is equal to 96, to help me write my distributive property sentence. So, because my 8 is my divisor, 8 are the multiples I'm going to be concerned of that are going to get me there. So I set up my parentheses and I say 8 times an unknown number, end parentheses, plus 8 times an unknown number, end parentheses. So I think to myself, if I want to get 16 here, what number do I have to multiply by 8? 2. That's the unknown factor. If I have 8 here and I want to get 80 here, I know that 10 is what I need to multiply by to get the unknown number of, the unknown factor is 10, so I need to do that to get 80. So now I check, is 80 plus 16 96? Yes, that's correct. So now remember, we talked about the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. This pile here is representing the ones, or like the dollar bills. This pile is representing like the $10 bill or the tens. We have to keep them separate, but at the end we're going to add them together. So when we add up our tens place and our ones place, we get 12. And what we do now is we check 8 times 12, and in fact is 96, the product. But now we can use division as well to demonstrate our knowledge of this. So we say 96 divided by 8 is equal to 12, our quotient, which is what our unknown factor was. So we're able to figure out the quotient because we're able to figure out the unknown factor. So take your time with this. Remember this lesson, we used two different strategies. One was we used the array to solve the multiplication to division, and the other one was the area model to solve from multiplication to division. Take really good notes, and do not forget to check the homework video for lesson 1.9 because I will be posting that here as well.